Revealing interview with Anna Nicole Smith's daughter, Dannielynn, 10 years after her mother's unexpected death.
Anna Nicole Smith's daughter, Dannielynn, proves she's her late mom's spitting image.
Well, following Anna Nicole's death in 2007 in a high-profile fraternity suit, Dannielynn has been raised by her father, Larry Birkhead.
Have you ever wondered what it feels like to grow up in the spotlight, to be known by the world before you even understand who you are? This is the story of Dannielynn Birkhead, the only daughter of the late Anna Nicole Smith, a woman who lived a life full of beauty, fame, heartbreak, and mystery. When Anna Nicole passed away, the world was shocked, but while headlines filled newspapers and cameras kept rolling, there was a baby girl left behind, quiet, innocent, and confused. That baby is now 18 years old, and for the first time, Dannielynn is speaking up about what her life has been like behind the cameras, the drama, and the famous last name. What was it like to grow up without a mother, to have the media chase her every move, to carry the weight of a legacy she never asked for? In this video,
we're not just talking about a celebrity kid. We're talking about a young girl's journey from silence to strength, from being hidden away from the spotlight to finally stepping out and sharing her truth with the world.
You'll hear about her struggles, private moments, her bond with her father Larry Birkhead, and how she managed to find herself while surrounded by the chaos of fame. You'll learn how she turned pain into purpose and how, even after everything, she chooses to smile. So, stay with us, because once you hear her story, you'll never look at her the same way again. This isn't just about Anna Nicole Smith's daughter. This is about a girl who grew up in the shadow of a legend and is now ready to step into her light. A baby born into chaos. When Dannielynn Birkhead was born on September 7, 2006, the world was already watching. Her mother, Anna Nicole Smith, was one of the most talked about women in Hollywood, known for her beauty, bold personality, and, unfortunately, the constant drama that followed her everywhere. At the time of Dannielynn's birth, Anna Nicole was a star, but her life was anything but ordinary. She had faced public scrutiny for years, first as a model, then as a reality TV star, and finally for the tragic story of her relationship with billionaire J. Howard Marshall, however, just days after Dannielynn's birth. The unimaginable struck the family. Anna's only son, Daniel Smith, who was only 20 years old, tragically passed away. He had been visiting his mother in the hospital after Dannielynn's birth, when he suddenly died.
The cause was later determined to be an overdose, but at the time the news was a shock to the family and the world. The media swarmed, and there was no escape for Anna. Her world was crumbling and she had just welcomed a daughter into it. To make matters worse, this devastating tragedy came at a time when Anna was still processing the immense loss and responsibilities of being a new mother.
Then, as if fate had a cruel way of continuing its hold over Anna, tragedy struck again. Just 5 months after Daniel's death, Anna Nicole Smith herself passed away from an overdose in February 2007. It seemed like the world had turned upside down. A woman who had once been at the center of a media circus, who had lived her life so publicly, now left behind a young daughter who would grow up without the love and guidance of her mother. Dannielynn, only a baby at the time, became an orphan before she could even walk or talk. She never had the chance to know her mother, let alone form the kind of bond that most children have with their parents. Instead, she was thrust into a world of chaos, where every part of her life would be dissected by the public. The tragedy that had unfolded made headlines around the world, but at the heart of it all was a little girl, her entire future ahead of her, but with the weight of her mother's troubled legacy already on her shoulders. The news exploded across every TV network, magazine, and social media platform. People were talking about her, but not in the way that a newborn baby should be talked about. She wasn't just the daughter of a famous woman. She was now the subject of the world's obsession.
It was clear that Dannielynn wasn't just another celebrity child. She was a symbol of a larger story, one of fame, loss, and public drama. But what the media didn't see, or perhaps didn't care to see, was that behind the headlines was a real child, a little girl who didn't ask for any of this.
The press focused on the details of her mother's death, the controversies surrounding her birth, and the legal battles that followed. Multiple men claimed to be Dannielynn's father, which added even more complexity and confusion to an already tragic situation. The world became obsessed with the question of who would get custody of her. People began fighting over her like she was a prize, not a person. It was a legal battle that played out in the public eye for all to see, and it became clear that Dannielynn was being treated like a commodity, not a child in need of love and care. This battle took a toll on everyone involved, especially on Dannielynn. She had already lost her mother, and now she was caught in a whirlwind of legal drama.
Imagine what it must have been like for a baby who couldn't understand what was happening but could feel the weight of the world on her tiny shoulders. The public was obsessed with her, yet she had no understanding of why. The constant media attention made her a symbol, but it was a symbol of tragedy, pain, and confusion, not the joyful celebration of new life that it should have been.
However, amid all the chaos, there was one person who would stand by her and ensure that she didn't get lost in the mess of media, lawsuits, and public drama. Larry Birkhead, a photographer and one of Anna Nicole's ex-boyfriends, emerged as the man who would fight for her. He had already been a part of Anna's life when Dannielynn was born, but he wasn't initially sure if he was her father. The media had already put out several names, claiming other men could be Dannielynn's father. This added fuel to the fire, and Larry found himself in the middle of a battle that wasn't just about legal custody, it was about a little girl's future. After undergoing DNA testing, it was confirmed that Larry was indeed Dannielynn's biological father. He was the one who stepped up, claiming his rightful role as her protector and parent.
Larry fought fiercely for full custody, determined to give his daughter the love, safety, and stability she deserved. The court battles were long and exhausting, but Larry never wavered. His love for Dannielynn was unwavering, and he made it clear that no matter the obstacles, he would not let anyone take her away from him.
Finally, after months of legal battles and media frenzy, Larry was awarded full custody of Dannielynn. From that moment on, he made a promise to her, a promise to raise her in a normal life, away from the flashing lights and the drama that had followed her mother's name. He promised to shield her from the chaos and provide her with a childhood that was as ordinary as possible, given the extraordinary circumstances of her birth. Larry wanted Dannielynn to have the chance to grow up in peace, free from the pressures of fame and public scrutiny. He vowed to give her a life filled with love, stability, and a sense of belonging, a life that was hers and hers alone. Life with Dad, a world away from Hollywood. Once Larry Birkhead gained custody of Dannielynn, he made a choice that shocked many. He took her far away from the world of glitz and glamour, away from the flashing lights of Hollywood and the constant attention of the paparazzi. He moved them to a quiet town in Kentucky, where life was simple, calm, and full of love. It was a world away from the chaos that had surrounded Dannielynn's early life, and Larry wanted to shield her from it all. People were surprised by his decision.
They wondered, why would the daughter of a famous model like Anna Nicole Smith live in a small town? The assumption was that someone with Anna's fame, someone as glamorous as her, would want to raise their child in a place where they could continue to bask in the limelight. But Larry wasn't interested in fame. He didn't care about magazine covers or red carpets. His focus was always on protecting his daughter and giving her a sense of normalcy that she deserved.
Larry made sure that Dannielynn experienced life like any other child, away from the pressures of being famous. She went to school just like everyone else, had close friends, played outside, and even helped out with community events. Larry encouraged her to pursue her dreams and to find happiness in the things that mattered most: family, friends, and simple joys. Though Dannielynn grew up in Kentucky, Larry made sure she knew who her mother was. He showed her old photos of Anna, told her stories about the good times they shared, and kept her memory alive in small ways. But even though Anna's name came up occasionally,
Larry made it clear that their lives were not defined by fame. Instead, they focused on building their memories, like going to the park, watching movies together, or simply eating pizza on the couch. A far cry from the whirlwind life Anna had lived.
they weren't isolated entirely from the public eye. Occasionally they would appear in the news, especially during the Kentucky Derby, a family tradition that always brought them a bit of attention. But aside from that, Larry and Dannielynn stayed far away from the spotlight, living their lives without the pressure of constant media scrutiny. And for the first few years, Dannielynn didn't speak publicly. She stayed quiet, letting her father make the decisions about how much of their lives would be shared with the world. She was content, and Larry was determined to protect her from the chaos that had once consumed their lives. Growing up without a mother. Losing a parent is something no child should ever have to go through. For Dannielynn, though, losing her mother wasn't just painful, it was confusing. She was still a baby when Anna Nicole Smith passed away, and like most toddlers, she couldn't remember anything about her mother. All that was left were the pictures, the stories, and the questions that lingered in her mind. Who was Anna Nicole? Was she happy in the moments before she left? Why did her mother leave so soon when Dannielynn was still so young? These questions would haunt her as she grew up. Although Larry Birkhead, her father, did his best to share stories about Anna Nicole with her, it wasn't always enough. There were moments when Dannielynn couldn't escape the ache of missing someone she had never known. She would look around and see other girls with their mothers laughing, sharing secrets, and enjoying their time together.
And that's when the emptiness would hit hardest. Mother's Day was especially tough, a reminder that she didn't have the same kind of relationship with her mother that other children had. No amount of stories or memories could fill that void.
In interviews, Dannielynn once said that it sometimes felt like she was getting to know her mom through other people. She'd see interviews, old video clips, and magazine covers where strangers seemed to know more about Anna than she did. The public seemed to have more of a connection to her mother than she did, and that realization stung deeply. But rather than letting this pain break her, Dannielynn used it as motivation to grow stronger. She focused on the love and support that she did have, especially from her dad, who had always been there for her. Over time, she learned to accept a difficult truth.
It's okay to miss someone you never really knew. It didn't make her weak, it made her human. She embraced the love she had from her father and the people who cared about her, choosing to build her own identity, one that wasn't defined by the tragedy of losing her mother too soon. Living with the fame she never asked for. Even though Dannielynn Birkhead grew up in the small, peaceful town of Kentucky, far from the flashing cameras and chaos of Hollywood, she could never completely escape the shadow of fame. People still recognized her as Anna Nicole's daughter wherever she went. Reporters and paparazzi would occasionally show up in her quiet town, trying to get a glimpse of her or catch a story. And the internet, well, the internet never forgot. Her mother's name was forever tied to hers, and as she got older, people were constantly reminding her of the past she didn't choose. Dannielynn once admitted how frustrating this could be at times. She wasn't just Anna Nicole's daughter, she was her person. But despite her frustrations, she also understood why people were curious. Anna Nicole Smith had been a huge name, and her daughter was an undeniable part of that legacy. People wanted to know about her because of her mother's fame, but that didn't mean Dannielynn was comfortable with being reduced to just that label. She wanted the world to see her for who she was, not just as a daughter living in her mother's shadow. As she entered her teenage years, the comparisons became even more noticeable. People started pointing out how much she looked like her mother. Some even started calling her Anna's twin, while others expected her to follow in her footsteps and pursue a career in modeling or acting, just like Anna Nicole had done. But Dannielynn had her dreams, far from the world of celebrity. She was passionate about art, reading, and music, and her interests were far removed from the spotlight. Thanks to the way Larry raised her, Dannielynn never felt pressured to follow in her mother's path. Her dad always told her, "You don't have to be like your mom, you just have to be you." And that made all the difference. It gave her the freedom to define her future, to embrace her own identity, and to decide what was important to her, not what the world expected from her. Now, at 18 years old, Dannielynn is finally ready to speak out about her life, her experiences, and what it's been like to grow up with a level of fame she never asked for. She's not speaking because someone told her to. She's speaking because it's time. Time for her to tell her own story, on her terms. The story of Dannielynn Birkhead, not just the daughter of Anna Nicole Smith. Speaking her truth. This is who I am. Now that Dannielynn Birkhead has officially become an adult, she is finally ready to speak up and share her story with the world. For many years, she lived a quiet, private life, staying far from the public eye, away from the cameras and attention that her mother, Anna Nicole Smith, had so often attracted. But as she approaches adulthood, Dannielynn has realized that she no longer has to stay silent or hide behind the walls of her past. Instead, she is choosing to open up and let the world know who she is, a person with her own identity, dreams, and experiences, shaped by love and loss. In a few recent interviews and public appearances, Dannielynn has been candid about what her life has been like. And surprisingly, it's not what many people might have expected. For so long, she was seen only through the lens of her famous mother, with much of the world seeing her as Anna Nicole's daughter. But Dannielynn is finally ready to break free from that label and step into her spotlight. As she said in one interview, "I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a girl who lost her mom and grew up with a good dad." Those simple words speak volumes about who she is and what she values. It's easy for people to assume that someone like Dannielynn, who was born into such a high-profile family, would want to continue living in the world of fame and public attention. But Dannielynn has never been interested in that. She's not chasing fame. Instead, she's chasing something much more valuable: peace. After years of being thrust into the public eye because of her mother's legacy, she understands how precious peace and privacy are. And to find that peace, she's made a conscious decision to step away from the spotlight and focus on what truly matters: her personal growth, her happiness, and her relationships. Although she was too young to remember her mother in the way that others might expect, Dannielynn carries a sense of pride in her mother's memory. She knows that Anna Nicole is a complicated figure, but she also knows that her mom loves her deeply. It's hard to imagine the full weight of growing up without your mother, especially when the world constantly reminds you of her absence. But Dannielynn has worked hard to come to terms with it, and in doing so, she's built her own life on the foundation of love and support from those who matter most. As she's gotten older, Dannielynn has said she hopes that her mother will be proud of the person she's becoming. She may not have had the chance to create memories with Anna, but she is making her memories, and she is proud of who she's become: kind, thoughtful, and strong. Dannielynn is a reflection of the values her father, Larry Birkhead, instilled in her throughout her life. He's always been there for her, teaching her that fame and celebrity don't define who you are, or what your life should look like. What matters is who you are on the inside, and how you treat the people around you. Larry's lessons have resonated with Dannielynn, and she's now speaking her truth, unapologetically and confidently, to the world. Despite the fact that she never got to fully know her mother, Dannielynn has made peace with that reality, and she's chosen to take the lessons from her mother's life and legacy and apply them to her own journey. She doesn't want to be seen as a reflection of Anna Nicole, but rather as a person who is carving out her own path, a path built on love, strength, and resilience. One of the things that Dannielynn has been most open about is how she wants to help others who have gone through similar pain. Losing a parent at a young age is something that no child should have to experience, but for Dannielynn, it's a part of her story that she's willing to share. She knows how lonely it can feel to grow up without the guidance and love of a mother, and if her story can help even just one person who is facing that kind of pain, then she believes it's worth it. She wants others to know that they are not alone, and that there is hope, even when it feels like the world is falling apart. Through her struggles, Dannielynn has learned that grief doesn't have to define you. It's a part of life, yes, but it's not the only part. Her resilience and willingness to share her truth with others are a testament to her strength. Dannielynn has made a conscious choice to be more than her circumstances, and she's using her voice to empower others who might be going through the same thing. It's not just about healing for herself, it's about helping others heal too. Now, at 18, Dannielynn is finally speaking out because she wants to, not because the world is forcing her to. She's ready to take control of her narrative, share her story on her terms, and live the life she's always dreamed of. A life full of peace, purpose, and love. The world has changed. The headlines have faded. But the little girl we all once saw on the front pages has grown up, and she's doing just fine. Dannielynn Birkhead isn't trying to be famous. She's not chasing magazine covers or red carpets. She's just a young woman learning to live in a world that once watched her every move. And she's doing it with grace. Her story isn't perfect. It's filled with sadness, questions, and moments of deep pain. But it's also filled with love, laughter, and quiet strength. The kind of strength that doesn't shout but stands tall anyway. She's proof that you can come from a broken past and still build a beautiful future. That even if the world sees you as someone's daughter, you can still become your person, and maybe, just maybe, that's the most powerful story of all. So, The next time you hear the name Anna Nicole Smith, remember her daughter too. Not as a sad chapter in a tragic story, but as a bright light that kept shining through the dark. Because Dannielynn didn't just survive, she found her way to shine.